Hey guys, welcome back to PP Academy. I know it's been a while since I uploaded a video, and some of you might already know this, but I caught the coronavirus and I was out of commission for a while because of it. I am feeling better now. I'm not completely recovered yet, but I am feeling good enough now to start streaming again, so back to work. This video, I've been meaning to make this video for a while, because it's something that a lot of people has been asking me about. So I've been like gathering clips and stuff for to prepare for this video, but it took me a while to get all the matchups that I wanted to show. But I finally got it, and here it is. So I get this question pretty much like every day that I stream, and people come on my stream and ask me, what do you think is the best budget build for corrupted dungeons, or what do you think is the best build for corrupted dungeons that's also cheap? And the answer for that, my answer for that, is Warble. So the Warble build, it's there's nothing really new to this build. It's pretty old school. It's what a lot of players used to play in the open world. But basically it goes Warble, Guardian Helmet, Assassin Jacket, and regular run on your boots. Now the regular run on your boots, I'd recommend that you use something like Scholar Sandals or maybe Assassin Shoes, something that has a little skirmish ability to it, uh, so that in certain matchups you can switch off of your regular run and use those boosts to like counter certain things that you have trouble with. For example, if you fight against Black Hands, Assassin Shoes and the Scholar Sandals both really help you a lot, because the Scholar Sandals can block the stun on the Black Hands E. The Assassin Shoes kind of does the same thing. It just dodge the entire thing completely, right? But anyway, regular run on your boots and Theffer Cape. If you want to go cheap, you actually don't even need to wear a cape for this build. You can just bring like a flat cape for mana, or even just like no cape at all. You'll be fine. And this build, I'd say like the weapon and the armor by themselves are altogether is probably gonna be like less than 50k if you're really like going cheap, and if you have some specs into the build. If you don't have any specs and you need to buy higher tier gear just to reach the soft cap, then you're gonna end up paying a little more. But if you're already expecting all this stuff, and you can just get away with like running flat 4s, which is exactly what I'm doing in this video, by the way. My weapon is tier 6 for the Ray of Light ability, and everything else is just flat 4. So if you're building it this way, then the whole entire build together is like 50k or something like that. It's literally dirt cheap. And that's not including the cape, of course. I'm using a Theffer cape in this video, but like I said earlier, if you're good at kiting, you really don't even need a cape. So back in the day, I made a bunch of videos about like cheap builds for 2v2 Hellgates. You can think of this build as a corrupted dungeon equivalent of that. It's a cheap build, it's not gonna win you every single matchup, but it's pretty fucking solid for how cheap it is. And actually, in current meta, it's a pretty strong matchup against some of the stuff that people are running. So, despite how cheap it is, it's definitely a very solid build. Now, the idea of the build is, it's really straightforward. It's you basically just kite people, right? Against most builds, especially melee builds, you just poke them with your Q and E, and every time they get close to you, you flash out away, right? Now, if you're facing something that is ranged and has no mobility, like this crossbow guy that I'm fighting right now, you can run Ray of Light, which gives you a lot more damage to help you like out trade people, but it's not something you'll want to do against people that have like mobility in their kit. Like for example, if you fight against a frost player or a baton bow player, you will want to stay on frost shot for the mobility, so you can like keep up with them and not let them get away when you have pressure on them. If you run Ray of Light, players like that has like mobility in their kit will just get away from you, and you'll not be able to catch it. Okay. Now, for the most part, I'd like to start on Q2, because it's the longest ranged Q, and it lets you outrange a lot of like other range weapons, like this crossbow, for example. So you can like poke them from really far away, and they can't hit you back. Um, of course, like against melees, if you check out the other guy's build and you see it's a melee player, you switch to Q1 for the knockback, and if it's Frost or a Baton Bow, something that you can out damage by just spamming Q at, then you run Q3 instead of the Q2. So against anything that you can beat by just trading damage with them, like for example Frost or what's that thing, Baton Bow, right? So builds like that, you just want to kind of fight them face to face. Then you want to run Infernal Shield, and against builds that you need to be jukey against, like Claymores for example, you'll want to run Ambush. And also against builds that have like really long buffs or mercenary jackets, for example, and builds that have like interruptible abilities. For example, boltcasters, right? The boltcaster E, if they channel that on you and you go into stealth, you cancel their E, right? So against stuff like that, you run ambush. And then on your boots, I talked about earlier, so you probably you run regular run most of the time, so you want to bring something to swap to for, countering whatever you usually have trouble against. Now, for the pros and cons of this build, like because you have such a long range on your E and even on your Q2, you can out kite almost anything in the game. Pretty much anything in the game. There are some melee weapons that are going to be really tricky to fight against. Some melee weapons that are like hard to shake off once they get on top of you. But there's pretty much nothing in the game that you absolutely will die to every time. Like there's maybe some things that you will have trouble killing, but there's nothing that should just like face roll you and kill you every time. Now the downside, of course, is it's a kiting build, so it's tedious and it takes a lot of patience to play, especially against other range builds. Sometimes you kite them a little bit and you build up some pressure on them, but then they start walking the other way, and then you lose all your pressure. They get their regen food to kick in, and get all their health back, and you have to just like start all over again. So that's the downside of that. And also of course, like being a kiting weapon, a pure kiting weapon, there's very little like hard engage in the build. Like sometimes you can get someone to half health, and if you try to hard engage on them, they will just turn around and destroy you because they are running burst builds like claymores and crossbows and blackhands and all those like super bursty builds. There'll be times when you feel like you build up some pressure on them and you try to go in, they just turn around and blow you up. So part of the challenge of this build is definitely to just have that patience and know when you can go in and when you cannot, and most of the times you cannot. Like most of the times you just really have to be patient and poke people to death. And another downside is the PvE of this build is like really slow, really slow. It feels slower than Plate Bloodletter, but maybe not as bad as Plate Frost or Hallowfall. But it's still pretty bad, and a lot of people are really like turned away from this build because of how slow it clears. But it is a budget build, so can't really expect it to be good at everything. On the PvP side, I would say like this is a really solid build. I'd probably give it like a really solid 8 out of 10. But the PvE side of it is like a 2 out of 10 for me. Alright, so we're gonna look at some specific matchups now. Now, if you're looking for a cheap build to run, I'm guessing most of you are probably going to be doing this in Stalker Dungeons, which is exactly what I'm doing in this video, right? So the specific matchups that we're going to be looking at are going to be more about Stalker Dungeons, what are common in Stalker Dungeons, right? So the first one we're going to look at is Blackhands. And Blackhands is super popular in Stalker Dungeons. It's a very cheap build to run, it's very straightforward, and a lot of people just don't know how to play against them, so they get bursted by them and get blown up by them. But as a wordbow player, it should be super easy for you to kill a Blackhand. And what you need to do is you just turn on you have ambush on your jacket, and you turn your Q to Q1, and every time they try to do Hellion Shoe to you, you either hit them with a Q1 and knock them out of their Hellion Shoe's channel, or you hit them with a or sorry, not hit them, but like you just use your ambush, and when you go into stealth, the channel on Hellion Shoe will also end. So that way they don't, like, they shouldn't ever be able to hit you with a full burst. Um, they might be able to like chain slash to you and then um, hit you with a E, but it's never gonna be like a Hellion Shoe empowered burst, and that's a huge difference, because the Hellion Shoe is like 35% damage boost or something like that. So if you take that away from them, that's a huge chunk of their damage gone. And you probably saw at the beginning of the clip, um, when I was checking out what build he was running, he got close enough to me to use Hellion Shoe and just use Assassin Jacket, and Hellion Shoe drops, and then you can use Run to get away from him and change your skill. So I changed to Q1, and then after that he basically had no chance because he can't get a whole combo off on me. Now sometimes when you fight against blackhand players, they will realize that you're playing a bow with Q1, and that the Hellion Shoe will just like not be able to do anything. So they will switch their build, and they'll probably be switching to like regular run with sometimes chain slash, sometimes even shadow edge. In this case, I'm fighting against someone that switched to shadow edge, and uh, sometimes when you're fighting against blackhands, they realize you're running a bow build, and they realize your Q1 will screw up their Alien Shoe every time. So they will switch their skill. So change to like regular run with Shadow Edge. Sometimes they keep the Chain Slash, but a lot of times they change the Shadow Edge just to like try and catch you. But if they do that, if they change to regular run, just play it out like any other melee build. But just keep in mind that the stuns from Shadow Edge and the stuns from the Black and E, or like any other stun in the game, really can interrupt your frost shot. So when they get on you, don't try to frost shot like too early, because if you do that, like you lose your frost shot and then you'll be in trouble. And if you do lose your frost shot, that's what your assassin jacket is for, right? That's what your ambush is for. So save that for those occasions where if they screw up your frost shot, you can just go into stealth and wait for them to or wait for your cooldowns to come back. And if you don't move around, the ambush can last like a whole 10 seconds, which by the end of that, your frost shot should be pretty much back off cooldown. Ah, cat in my room. Alright, next we're gonna talk about anything that runs Demon Cape. So a lot of people don't know this, but like if you stand in the puddle of a Demon Cape, you and use Guardian Helmet, it'll start taking damage from the Demon Cape. For some reason, the damage from Demon Cape is coded as a dot, um, and it's the same thing as the lava bats in the corrupted dungeons. If you go kill one of them and they drop that big old puddle that looks like a demon cave, yeah, this bat right here that's on my screen right now. If you stand in that lava and you hit Guardian Helmet, you stop taking damage from it. So against some builds, like One Shot Pike for example, they can't actually one shot you if you hit your Guardian Helmet fast enough before the silence procs on the One Shot Pike, right? Because there's usually there has to be a little delay, right? When they hit you with the auto attack, and like between that and when the silence actually activates, there's a delay. So during that delay, if you hit Guardian Helmet, you don't take damage from the cape. Same thing with the quarterstaff. If the quarterstaff hits you, like if you resist the stun run on quarterstaffs with your scholar sandals, for example, and then they hit you with, like, if they manage to hit an E on you somehow without the stun run, they might sometimes like get you stuck in the Demon Cape Cup puddle, but that's not gonna do any damage to you if you just hit the Guardian Helmet. Now in this clip, I'm getting matched up against a quarterstaff that's just being annoying. He doesn't really have the damage to kill me, and I'm not following him into mobs, so there's no way for me to die to him, basically. So the plan was to hit the crystals and get him to run into me so I don't have to go chasing him, because I can't really chase him down. I was saying earlier, there's some builds that you can't really kill with this build. Not that they should be able to kill you either, but it's just hard to like get the finishing blow on them because they can run away from you. This quarterstaff player does eventually get away from me, but the reason why I wanted to show off this clip is to just show you this mechanic here. I'm gonna rewind and play it again, but you can see that I'm standing inside his demon cape, and I'm just not taking any damage because of the Guardian Helmet trick. Alright, so next matchup we're going to talk about is the old school chill hell build. It's old school, the meta chill hell build with cultist rope. Right, so against this matchup, just run Q3 and Inferno Shield, and you should be able to just out damage them. And the only way that they can win really is if they run away from you and get a full channel off of Levitate after they've traded some damage with you. So just watch for that Levitate cooldown, and if they try to Levitate in your face, you should be able to just cancel out the majority of their healing by keeping up your Q stacks and hitting your E on them. Your Q stacks, if you keep up 3 stacks, that's actually more damage per second than your E, so don't underestimate the value of that. Also, Frost players almost always runs an Omelet, and with the CDR from Omelet, sometimes they'll run a Mistcaller too, so they'll have a lot of like cooldown reduction, and their blinks and run skills will come back off cooldown very quickly. So make sure that you're on the right food when you're fighting them, because if you're not running full cooldown reduction on your food, you are not going to be able to chase down a Frost player. And also helps if you maybe change your armor or your shoe passive to cooldown reduction as well to kind of balance out the fact that they might have a Mistcaller. But anyway, as you can see, as long as we're running the right skills, like when he actually tries to find me, I easily outdamage him. Even when he uses Levitate to heal, as long as it's like not out range of me when he heals, I can cancel out pretty much all of his healing by just hitting a Q and hitting a E and a bunch of Qs. Alright, next up we're going to talk about Druids. Now this one is super annoying to deal with because they have so much healing, and we're running a poke build, and it's really hard to poke down something that has so much healing. But it is doable. What you need to do is run Ray of Light on your W and run your second Q. Right? The second Q has the longest range of all of your Qs, and you can actually Q the Druid from beyond their auto attack range. And basically the goal is to keep hitting him with your damage and not let him auto attack you, because not only do they rely on auto attacks for damage, they also rely on auto attacks for mana. And if you don't give them something to auto attack, eventually they'll run out of mana and they will not be able to heal themselves anymore. Sometimes in this matchup, they'll change their skills from Protection of Nature on their W. Right, usually they run Protection of Nature, so they do like Protection of Nature into E or Protection of Nature into Mercenary Jacket, and that's how they get a whole lot of healing. But sometimes they'll change off of Protection of Nature and they'll put on the other one called Rejuvenate, because that one also gives them mana. It heals them and it gives them mana. So if they run Rejuvenate, make sure you drop like the biggest burst you got on them while they're trying to rejuvenate, when they're trying to channel rejuvenate, because if they take damage when they're during their channel, it shortens their channel and it makes them lose a lot of that healing and a lot of that mana. Okay, if they're staying on Protection of Nature, you just do your best to poke them from afar, and there's nothing special that you gotta do. Just make sure they don't auto attack you too much. Now, like I said, this is a really long and tedious fight, so expect that, or if you don't want to deal with that, you can just go for the crystals. But if you don't want to go for crystals, you just want to duke it out with them, like this is a winnable fight. Don't think like, it's a druid, I can't kill it. You can kill this, just run them out of mana and you'll win. Another thing to keep in mind is on your chess piece, definitely make sure that you have ambush for this one, because a lot of their healing comes from auto attacking with Mercenary Jacket on, and a lot of times you get them low. They'll like turn on Mercenary Jacket, turn on Wanderlust, and just try to run you down with Wanderlust. And if they do that and you go into stealth, you basically waste their Wanderlust and you waste their Mercenary Jacket. So that's a really strong counter for them. But just make sure that when you're using Mercenary Jacket, you don't have a projectile mid-air while you hit that R skill, right? Because if you have the R skill, the ambush, it ends when you do damage to the enemy, right? So if you're using Q3, for example, and the poison ticks, that poison tick is gonna pull you out of stealth. And same thing if you have a projectile mid-air, if you have R flying at your enemy while you hit your stealth, it's going to pull you out of stealth when that projectile actually hits. Right? So just make sure you don't have any kind of like damage that's about to happen while you're using that stealth skill. Alright, so in this clip, I'm fighting against fire staff, but it's not really to show you how to fight fire staffs. To fight fire staffs, you basically just outkite them like you outkite crossbow players. But the point of this clip is to show you what not to do with the ambush. Right, so I'm using Q3 in this fight, and you'll see that because I have Q stacks on the guy and it's taking damage on him, when I go into stealth on this one, it's gonna pull me right out of stealth, because the dot from my Q is damaging him. It didn't used to be like this. Like I can swear that a few patches ago, you used to be able to damage people with poisons, like your bow Qs, curse Qs, or axe Qs, for example, or the passives from like dagger bleed passives. Like all of those things used to be able to like damage people while you're in stealth and not make you lose stealth. But I don't know what patch it was, but something happened, and that doesn't work anymore. So just keep that in mind, and don't do what I did here. Use Q3 with the stealth, because that's just gonna make you lose your stealth. Alright, last but not least, we've got battle modes. Now, I don't know about you guys, but personally, I hate battle modes. I think their kiting plus the crazy amount of healing that they can get from Mercenary Jacket is just so obnoxious for anybody to fight against. But for Warbles, we actually got kind of advantage against them, especially against the battle mode players that are just like copying the meta build and don't really know how to play the build to the fullest extent, but just want to copy a strong build and let the build carry them, basically. So against those players, what you need to do is you change your Q to Q3 and change your jacket to Inferno Shield. Inferno Shield, well, actually, like just Warbow versus Battle, if you have no armor, like if you don't use any armor skills, and just trade damage, Warbow against Battle, you'll out damage them as long as you can land all of your E's, right? So that is already like an advantage for you. And the other thing is like when they hit their E's on you, if it's an E with a Mercenary Jacket, you step out of the circle first and you hit Guardian Helmet. And when you do that, you will remove the dot on their E, and it's going to cancel out a lot of their damage and a lot of their healing. If they hit an E on you, but they don't use their Mercenary Jacket, hit Inferno Shield, and that's gonna reflect a lot of damage back at them. And like I said earlier, even without Inferno Shield, like if nobody uses the armor skill, the Warble player will win this matchup all the time, just by just if you land all of your E's, you'll do more damage than them, because your cooldown is so much shorter than theirs. Like E for E, as long as you don't stay inside the AoE of the Vatum Bow, like you do pretty much the same damage E for E, but your E has like a third of their E's cooldown. So you should be able to win that matchup if it's just hit for hit, right? So as long as you cancel out the healing with their Guardian Helmet and reflect their damage back when they don't have Mercenary Jacket with their ease, like this should be a winning matchup for you. The annoying thing though is sometimes the bat and bow player will try to like hit a crystal and get their healing off, and things get kind of complicated when they actually know how to play. But if it's like one of those players that just copying the meta build and letting the build carry them, you should be able to beat them like 9 out of 10 times if you just do everything I just said. Alright, so that's all the tips I've got for this video. If you are subbed to me from before my coronavirus break, I really appreciate you for sticking through these hard times with me. And if you are not subbed to me, or if you're not subbed to me anymore, please go down there and make sure you have clicked that thumbs up button and the sub button and the notification bell. I really appreciate it, and I will see you guys in the next video.